Hello. Today I'm going over light-independent reactions in detail lecture. So we had previously gone over the light-dependent reactions, which is this first part of photosynthesis, where we're going to take energy from the sun and eventually get that same energy into a sugar, like a glucose. Well, we covered this first part here, and we talked about that. Now we're looking at this second part here in the purple. That is the Calvin cycle, or the light-independent reaction. The light-independent reactions, also called the Calvin cycle, take place in the stroma of the chloroplast. So we know this bean structure is the chloroplast. It's an organelle in a cell, in a plant cell in this case. Unlike the light-dependent reactions, the Calvin cycle does not directly require sunlight. So the Calvin cycle could be happening 24 hours a day. You don't have to have sunlight for this Calvin cycle to work. Instead, it uses the ATP and NADPH produced during the light-dependent reactions. So you can see those here, right? ATP produced, NADPH produced, and it'll go into the Calvin cycle to get used. The main purpose of the Calvin cycle is to build sugars that the plant can use for energy and growth, right here. So this is the basis of our food chain. This is how we're making food, how we make in the base, how we make plants. Animals eat plants, animals eat animals, so on and so forth. All right, so getting into the details. In step 1, which we have right there, carbon dioxide, CO2, molecules enter the Calvin cycle from the atmosphere. So plants are taking CO2 in to their leaves, and then that CO2, that gas, can be used in this process. So we have CO2 coming in. These carbon atoms combine with existing 5 carbon molecules inside the cycle. That is this. This is a 5 carbon molecule. So when you put 5 carbon molecule together with a single carbon molecule, you're going to get a 6 carbon. When the carbon dioxide is added, unstable 6 carbon molecules are formed. So now this molecule here, it's not very stable, which is intended. This step is called carbon fixation because carbon from the atmosphere becomes part of an organic molecule. All right, so we're at this unstable 6 carbon molecule. In step 2, which we see here, so we had started with step 1. In step 2, energy from ATP and NADPH is added to the 6 carbon molecules. So this is already unstable. Now we're going to add energy from ATP and energy from NADPH, making them more unstable. The unstable 6 carbon molecule splits apart to form 3 carbon molecules. So this is going to get split in half, and now we have 3 carbon molecules. More energy is transferred to these molecules, rearranging them into higher energy forms. So now this 3 carbon molecule has lots of energy stored up in it. We've kind of like crammed energy into that storage molecule. ATP changes into ADP, NADPH changes into NADP plus after giving up their stored energy. So we're transferring energy along just like we did in the light reactions. Some of the high energy 3 carbon molecules leave the cycle during step 3. So what you'll see here is some of these are going to leave. For every 3 carbon dioxide molecules that enter the cycle, 1 high energy 3 carbon molecule exists. Okay. 2 of these 3 carbon molecules can later combine to form 1 6 carbon sugar, such as glucose. That's happening here. So some of these are going to leave. They're going to link up or bond with another set of 3 carbon molecules to make a stable 6 carbon molecule. This can become a sugar. So it's not like this one over here. This one was unstable. This one is much more stable. And it's got a bunch of energy in there from the stored and transferred energy that's been taking place along the way. These sugars store chemical energy that plants use for life processes. All right, so the sugar, that's food for the plant. The plant needs to eat, but it doesn't have a mouth, it doesn't have teeth, so it makes its own food, and then it can use that food just like we use food to get energy for life processes. All right, just a little bit more. So that's part of the cycle. Half of these molecules have dropped out, but the other half of these molecules are going to keep going. Not all of the 3 carbon molecules leave the cycle. Most continue through the Calvin cycle, so the process can keep repeating. In step 4, ATP provides energy to rearrange the remaining 3 carbon molecules back into 5 carbon molecules. So some of our leftovers here that kept going along, this 3 carbon is going to get converted back into a 5 carbon using ATP again, which will switch back to ADP. And then this 5 carbon molecule is available to link up with carbon dioxide again, continuing this whole cycle. Let's see. These rearranged 5 carbon molecules are necessary because they combine with new carbon dioxide molecules entering the cycle. The Calvin cycle must occur many times for a plant to produce enough sugar. Each turn of the cycle only adds a small amount of carbon into a usable energy-rich molecule. The cycle depends on a constant supply of ATP, that stuff there, and NADPH up there from the light-dependent reactions. Together, the light-dependent reactions and the Calvin cycle allow plants to capture sunlight energy and store it in sugars. So again, this is somewhat complex, but it's very sequential and logical. This goes to this. The number of carbons all match up. It's definitely something that can be learned. Usually not the first time that you hear it, but if you go through this, it actually is pretty easy to follow once you go through it a couple of times and read each of the steps. All right, I hope this helps. Let me know if there's anything I can answer. Thank you.